Hey guys, Woods Farm here, just back out working on the 222 Scout Car project. Going to be working on the gas pedal and also the shift linkage and hopefully the shifter for the transmission. And these are all parts that we need to get sorted out for the test drive that we're working towards. Son of a... Come on. There we go. So one thing we noticed is there was a lot of flex on the bottom of this plate, the master cylinder mounting plate. So we added this vertical support, and there's going to be some sort of paneling in here probably to kind of separate the crew compartment from the outside. So that's going to make a good structure to add some sheet metal to create that kind of front firewall or bulkhead. So we did that, and it is a lot more rigid. And now we're working on some other sort of mechanical linkages and things of that nature. The sporning, I don't know if you can see that rod. We worked on creating a shift linkage that goes to the transmission, and that is going to come up here to the shift lever. And we're also working on the accelerator pedal and cable for the throttle. So it seemed to make sense to build right off the side of the brake pedal assembly, and this was actually my son's idea, to have a hinge point up at the top and then create a rod that comes down and extends through the floor. And for simplicity's sake, what this ends up doing is it allows you to push on the accelerator pedal and pull a cable, which is what we need on the back end on the carburetor. So this is the simplest system. I had ideas to do something kind of with a push-pull lever, but this is way simpler. So on that rod, there'll be like a small pedal kind of welded just off to the side of it that the toe your foot will be able to push forward on. Essentially, the pedal will sit somewhere around here. And right around here, there's going to be a small little piece that makes the pedal, which will be right beside your brake pedal. And the idea is when you push on the pedal, it moves forward, which this bar extends down below the floor line, and just below the floor line, that is where we're going to have our cable, our throttle cable, hooked up onto this rod, and as you push forward it will pull on that cable. Okay, the next thing we need to do is get this front portion of the throttle cable in place. There's going to need to be at least 2 guides that this locks into to hold it, and this cable, part of the cable system, is going to bend kind of in an S shape, because what happens is that the throttle pedal is more in the center of the vehicle, and we need the main cable to be on the passenger side along the frame and to run back this way. And the main obstruction being the transfer case right there in the middle of the vehicle. If we didn't have the transfer case there, you could just pretty much run the cable straight back and up to the carburetor, but we need to jog it off to the side, so we're going to have to work on coming up with an idea for that. Okay, so there's the arm. It comes down, extends through the floor, and it attaches to a cable. And that you see, as you push the pedal forward, it pulls on the cable. We had to fabricate these little guides that hold the cable and send it back towards the rear of the vehicle, and eventually it'll link up to the throttle arm or the accelerator arm on the carburetor. Okay, we had a little setback with the transmission again. And what ended up happening is we were testing the linkage, and the arm right here actually broke off the shaft that goes into the transmission. So we had to drain the transmission oil, take the pan off, disassemble everything in there, re-weld it, put it all back together. So hopefully it holds now, but you can see we've got, try to get a better view, this rod goes underneath the vehicle up towards the front and is eventually going to connect to the shift lever. It's adjustable and it has an offset here. It goes up and it connects to the shift arm on the transmission. So what happens is, now that when you pull on that lever, you're able to shift through the gears. There's a series of guides that are bolted to the underside of the frame that guide the rod, and these are eventually going to have plastic bushings just to keep the rattling down and hopefully make them slide a little more smoothly. And then that brings us to the front, where we're now just working on the mechanism for the actual shift arm. So we've got a shift arm built and goes into a housing which will then extend below the floor and connect to the rod. And by moving the lever back and forth, you'll be able to shift through the gears on the transmission. Okay, here's the shift arm or shift lever. My son John worked on this yesterday and got it finished up. And essentially you've got a button on the top, and as you push that button, it moves down, and eventually on the side here there's going to be a little L piece that will lock into a detent or a hole, and it'll allow you to shift it into drive, for example, and then it will lock into place. And this bolt here is the pivot point for the whole thing that will get attached into the housing that we're working on right now. So here's one of the little guide plates that the arm moves in, but the actual position of the shifter needs to be up in here somewhere. So we're going to remove this plate, and then we're going to put a kind of a base plate right below where the shifter is, very similar to this, what we have, this guide plate for the accelerator lever. There's going to be something similar over here, and it's going to give a good strong place to bolt the housing in, and the lever will extend through the floor and be connected to the rod. So this is the shift lever housing, I guess you would call it. It still needs a plate to fill in this hole here on both sides, but we're just testing it right now. But the lever rides inside this space. There's this hole here is where the pivot point goes through, and then the whole thing bolts into the floor. And this is the floor plate. It's got 4 bolt down points, and this is what the shift mechanism bolts into, and then the bottom of it will link up with the linkage here that goes back to the transmission. Okay, so that's the lever. We still have to do a little bit of work on it to clean it up, and we need to add the detent, but we can go through the different gear positions. So it's in park, go into reverse, neutral, drive, first gear. First gear, drive, neutral, reverse, all the way forward, park. Okay, we're in park. Come back into reverse, neutral, drive, and then first gear. So there's the shift mechanism. On this top plate here, like I said before, there's going to be small little holes that correspond with each gear position, and there's a spring actuated detent that is going to allow you to push down and then move into a different gear position, and then it'll lock into that position. We still have to work on this shift arm and maybe make some adjustments, but the button should be a little smaller. But the idea is you have a button, and down inside that's going to actuate the detent or the locking mechanism to lock it into the different gear positions. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this video up here. We still have a couple little things to do to finish up the shift mechanism to shift the transmission gears, but that's not going to take long. And the gas pedal is almost done, so that's a good thing. I think in the next video we're going to be working on the steering wheel and some of the brake stuff. These are all projects that we need to get done so we can do the test drive. If you got any questions, comments, leave them below, and as always, thanks for watching.